Welcome back to the We Are More Than Moms podcast. Today, we are thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Lia Higgins, the inspiring voice behind the popular TikTok account, One Lit Mama. Lia is a New York City mom who speaks openly and honestly about some of the most complex and emotional aspects of motherhood, from navigating her chemical pregnancy to recovering from postpartum hemorrhage. She's also shared her experience transitioning from children to two, perhaps most profoundly, her journey of stepping away from her demanding career in big law to discovering what truly lights her up. In this episode, we'll dive into Lia's story, what it's been like emotionally to let go of her identity, how she's redefining success and fulfillment, and how she's using her platform to connect with moms on a deeply authentic level. Lia's willingness to share about her raw and unfiltered experiences is a reminder that while motherhood can be overwhelming, it can also be a gateway to rediscovering ourselves in the most unexpected ways. Welcome, Lia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Also, a fun fact about Lia is she flew in from New York to be here.
Yes, oh my God, we are so honored.
She was actually following us on More Than Moms, and she DM'd us, and now we are here today, so I'm so happy that we made this happen, and to start the new year off like this is amazing.
It's great how, as moms, we can all kind of, connect and relate on a level that, we just shoot our shot and, hey, can we, connect?
For sure. I was just telling you that I was so excited when I realized that you were following my TikTok account. I had this moment of oh my God, am I cool enough for this girl to be following me? And then to DM you and be like, I love your podcast. Any interest in having me on? Shoot your shot is exactly the way I was getting dressed to go to a wedding. And I just,
oh my God, I
sent
that.
it out. And I was like, maybe.
It also just goes to show that you just got to shoot your shots. You don't, why care so much about what people think okay, so someone says no, but why not just go for it? It's the same reason people are like, how do you make friends as moms? Just go up to someone and talk to them at the park, at the pediatrician, wherever. The worst case scenario is they don't want to talk to you.
And they think you're weird.
But the best case is you make a new friend.
People think that anyway. So yeah
totally.
Normally your weird will match someone else's weird. So
exactly.
That works out.
100%.
Gotta do it.
Well, if you guys are following Lia or if you haven't checked her out yet, I was really drawn to your Instagram because I feel like it's your TikTok, because the way you speak is just so honest. It's from the heart. I love what you share, but you also have this, your apartment is stunning. Your family is so sweet. And there's a part of it that's really aspirational, but I love how you're also super down to earth. So you have this balance that I feel like you're wow, she's aspirational. It's the quintessential New York mom, lifestyle so many women would love to live. But then you also are there's this common ground that all moms can relate to. And you're so real about that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that it's exactly what you said. It's true. Because I don't lie on TikTok and on any of my social media, I can't really cover up the parts of my life that are more aesthetically pleasing. For example, my apartment, which people comment on all the time. They're like, how do you keep it so clean? Do you have a housekeeper every day? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm neurotic. And so everything is clean all the time because I go nuts if it's not. So that's really what happens. And all of these craziness and the normal family life that everyone else experiences, like going to the park with their kids, taking them to school, activities, it's just within this backdrop of the Upper East Side, which is really aesthetically pleasing. And that's lovely, but it's the real life that I'm living and I can't hide that. So I might as well show you all of it. I'm happy to also talk about my kid is puking everywhere. So, it's you're going to get what you're going to get from me.
No, exactly. And did you grow up in New York City?
Yes.
Okay. So what's it like raising kids in the city, growing up in the city?
Like deja vu.
Yeah.
So I grew up on the Upper East Side. So did my husband. We have been dating since high school.
Wow.
And it's funny now taking our kids to the same places that we went to as children. My child likes to go to the craft studio that I went to for birthday parties when I was his age. And it's a little bit odd that so much has stayed the same, but it's also nice because I know how to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think a lot of people move to New York and they're like, well, how do you get around? How do you do this? Where do you go? And I think a lot of people think of New York as this hustle and bustle place, and they don't see the more livable sides of it. It can be overwhelming, I'm sure, when that's the case. For me, it's my norm. So it I just fell into step with that, which is nice.
That is nice. I feel like so many people who debate, I could never raise kids in New York City.
I hear that all the time.
Are you just I know you grew up there, but is it I would never raise kids anywhere else for you?
By the way, you're speaking to two people who were living in New York
City,
right?
And then just moved to LA and had kids in LA. So we understand it, but we always say to each other, like, wow, I can't imagine our kids in LA.
Well, was it because you had kids that you decided to move to LA?
No, we moved here right before we got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
For different reasons. But I don't, like, my life in New York was so different.
Right.
And it was because I was in a different chapter of my life. I was in my hustle years. I was building my career. I was going nonstop. And I think COVID also enabled us all to take a step back. And I think my nervous system is a lot calmer in LA.
Yeah.
So that I feel like I can be like a really good mom because I feel calm. Not to say I couldn't do that in New York, but my memories and experience in New York was the hustle years of my 20s.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would be lying if I said that I didn't toy with the idea of moving. I could never move to the suburbs of New York. I know that's a controversial thing, but that is just not for me. I always say, if you were going to force me to live in this godforsaken place, I'm damn well living on the island of Manhattan, and that's it. Like, there's no, like, it's either New York City, Manhattan, or like bust for me. However, I have toyed with the idea of moving to Park City quite a bit. My husband and I just love it there. Our dog loves it there. My kids seem to be very happy there. So that is something I've thought about for exactly the reasons you just said, to slow down, to actually have a minute to think, to not be so caught up in the hustle and bustle and the build of your career and everything outside of your family. But for now, with both my husband and my family being in New York City, it would be really hard for us to up and leave our parents and getting to see our kids grow up with a close relationship with their grandparents, and in this city where they're exposed to so many wonderful things. The fact that my 2-year-old, this is semi-obnoxious, so bear with me, but he regularly says, I want to go to the Met. And I'm like,
oh, I love it. That's cute.
No, it means he's cultured.
He's cultured.
Like, great. No problem.
So you have a 2-year-old.
I have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old.
Right. Okay. So you're like us, you had kids close together.
I did.
So how was a transition? We always like to ask, like, how is a transition from 0 to 1 versus 1 to 2? Like, what have you found, especially having kids back to back?
And also mentally, not so much like the physical strain on you. Like, how is it inside?
Yeah. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Great. When I had my son, and this is something I've been so open about because I wish somebody else was open about this with me when I was in the newborn stage, I fucking hated it. I was like, what the fuck did I do to my life? Like, I love this baby so much, but I can't move. I can't function. And I did have help. I had a baby nurse, but he was just, now I know because of my daughter that I think my son had colic. He was crying all the time. I couldn't soothe him. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And I was so defeated in so many ways. I also, from a physical standpoint, I had that postpartum hemorrhage. So I was super iron deficient. I had so much blood loss that I couldn't physically take care of him in the way I felt I needed to. I was just exhausted. I would be up and walking around and then need to sit down pretty quickly after. I couldn't lift a water bottle that was full. It was just so much and so overwhelming. I don't know that I had postpartum depression, but maybe postpartum anxiety is probably more likely. I was a bit of a wreck. And it was also wintertime, so I was stuck in the house in New York. I couldn't get outside. That's why I had my second baby. I planned to have her in the spring, summer, because I was like, never again will I do that. I think being stuck and unable to move and get out and see the world and just being what I felt was trapped at home with my baby was really, really hard for me.
So how did you do it differently the second time, knowing what you knew for the first?
I planned to give birth in May.
I love that.
It magically worked out, and that was great. With my second, I think part of it is also that she is a bit more of, I hate saying this, but like an easier baby. She does sleep way more consistently. My son, nap time, not a thing until he was like over 1. I never knew when he was going to nap. It wasn't consistent. She naps consistently 3 times a day on a schedule. She doesn't spit up. There's no colic. If she's crying, something is wrong. Like last time she cried hysterically at night, I had to take her to the ER because she was spiking a fever. She had croup. She lets me know when something is really wrong versus consistently crying. And my son is he's such a gem. He's such a character and he's hysterical. But it was harder for sure with him as a baby. I think I also had the confidence as a second-time mom that I didn't have as a first-time mom. As a first-time mom, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. As a second-time mom, I was like, I don't always know what I'm doing, but I know more of it, and it's okay to not know what I don't know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But how about the anxiety the second time around? Did that kind of dissipate because you felt more confident, or did it still come out?
It came out a little less. It was better the second time.
Do you think that's because you removed some pressure that you put on yourself of trying to do it all?
Maybe. At that point, I kind of leaned into being okay with being on maternity leave. I think I was also able to get out more. The weather was nice and beautiful. I took her places. We went to the park. Yeah, so much of it was confidence, really.
Did you take a longer maternity leave the second time?
I extended by 2 weeks, mainly because my husband was traveling for work when I was supposed to go back. And that just was not going to be a good start. I just knew that.
Let's talk about maternity leave for a second, because I think so many people experience this like maternity leave crisis where, you know, it's like a kind of loss of identity. And then when it's time to go back, they're like, oh my God, but this career doesn't fulfill me anymore, or I don't want to leave because my priorities have shifted.
Yeah.
So how was that for you the first and second time around? How was the maternity leave? How was the process of figuring out, do I want to go back to like, who am I now?
So I never had the thought that I wasn't going to go back at all. I did kind of think the second time around that it was unlikely I was going to stay for a long time. I knew how hard it was going back with one child. I had a feeling just from talking to other moms who had done the big law thing with 2 kids and from my own experience the first time around that maybe it was going to be harder the second time. And it was. There was a day where I woke up. My daughter, it was right after the croup incident. She had to be going to the doctor for a checkup to make sure she was recovering from that. I ran her to the doctor. My husband was traveling for work. I ran her to the doctor. I was on my phone checking my email, trying to push a meeting back, trying to meet a deadline, not paying attention to the doctor who was asking me like pretty important questions about my daughter's health, running her back home, trying to hit a deadline, running to a nursery school tour for my son, which is also, you know, obligatory. Like you have to go. You have to get them into nursery school, which is a whole other situation in and of itself. And then I worked till like 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. And I was just like, this can't be an everyday thing. And that was something I think I knew was coming, but also didn't expect to that degree that both kids were going to need things at the same time on the same day. And I just couldn't be everywhere at once. I think the other difference for me is that I had already started kind of building out One Lit Mama and what that could look like and getting excited about where that could take me, not necessarily to be like a social media person or a content creator, but writing about these topics that we're talking about right now, which is really a passion of mine. Instead of writing briefs, I wanted to be doing more writing about my experience in motherhood. And maybe I could translate these skills that I had gained as a lawyer into a subject that I had become more passionate about.
What would you say to moms out there who are really struggling of the concept of going back to work and don't feel fulfilled by their career and want to do something like what you started with One Lit Mama? Like, how do you listen to this urge to stay with your fulfillment instead of like what feels maybe more comfortable because you've always been doing it or what society wants from you?
I think what I would say is to acknowledge that it's hard. We don't always do that enough. It's just fucking hard. I think I stayed in big law to have my second kid because my ego was so attached to it. And I was so wedded to this idea of being an attorney who worked for a powerful firm. And my ego was so tied up in it. The money was good too. So it was really hard to leave. I think what I would tell new moms is to, one, go back and give it a shot. You don't know how you're going to feel. But if it doesn't feel good, listen to that. But start thinking about what would feel good. Start testing things. Start building. Build now, apologize later. Just get started, get going. If you have an interest or a passion, give it a shot. One thing I also want to acknowledge, I guess, though, on that front is that that's a privilege to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be naive in saying that it's not. I'm very lucky to now be in a situation where I can kind of test things out that are not the most financially fulfilling. That's not everyone's situation. So that's why I would say, and even I did this, is build while you still have that steady income, start testing while you do. And then when you feel confident, leave. But don't hold back because you're worried about what everyone else is going to think, because people will always have shit to say. That's not your problem. That's their problem.
Let's talk about ego for a second, because I feel like a lot of us as moms, some people don't want to say, like, we're so tied to the title of our job or the business we've created. We've talked about this a lot. So, you go to a party, you introduce yourself. What do you do? It's like this loss of like, oh, I'm not in Big Law, or I don't own this company, or I'm not running X, Y, and Z. Like, how have you thought about that in a sense? Or like, what would you say to someone who's like, okay, my ducks are in a row, I'm ready to leave, but I feel my ego is bruised and I don't know, I want to identify with a title.
Yeah, that happened to me too. Like when I let go of my business, even when I sold it, I was like, oh my God, who am I? Like, what do I say when someone asks me what I do? Like,
I had this last night. I went to a restaurant last night here in LA, and one of my friends who I was out to dinner with, she was introducing me to someone else who ran the restaurant or something. And she asked me what I did. And I was like, I turned to my friend and I was like, what the fuck do I do? Like, what is my time? Like, can I say I still have a law degree, so I'm a barred attorney, so I am a lawyer, but that's not really what I'm doing day to day. Do I post TikToks? Am I a writer? Like, I don't know. And that honestly hit me pretty hard. And the woman said to me, like, don't give up law. I was like, oh, we just met.
She doubled down.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. I called my husband after when I got home. I was like, I don't really know how I feel about this, but I'm pretty sure it's not good. I think I'm not sure what I would say so much as to have the confidence in yourself to know that you're going to make yourself into whatever title you feel is right for you. But the transition period is difficult. And we always want a title, right? Like, it's with dating.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be the girlfriend, the fiance, the wife. You don't just want to be like the thing, the fling, whatever. You always want the title. I think you have to, in this particular type of case, be comfortable with the idea of figuring it out and owning the fact that you're figuring it out. Otherwise, you're going to rush it. And you might rush into something out of fear that you don't actually want.
100%. I think just motherhood in general is about letting go of our ego. It's whether we let go of a job title or another title we have, or whether we let go of like pre-existing beliefs or concepts that we're trying to project on our kids that's not healthy because they're their own human.
Yes.
Like there's so much of our ego that we have to like check at the door and parent from a place of like pure consciousness. It's not about us and what we've done in the past and who says things are good and bad. That's based on our past experiences and our life. But for these pure kids, there's no good and bad, right? Like they see something and they're like, wow, that's pure,
Yeah.
Versus us, we are like, oh, no, that's not great. Or we have opinions about things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that it's very hard not to push your own beliefs on your kids and to let them be who they want to be. And I think it's really hard for us to take the advice that we would want to give to our kids, right? Like, I would want to tell my children that you have time to figure it out. So figure it out and like have the confidence in yourself to do that. But when you're putting that back on yourself, it's so hard to actually listen to.
For sure.
Don't you think also like so much of your identity has shifted in the last couple of years? What you tell your kids now maybe have been so different from what you would have told your kids before. Yeah. Maybe before you'd have been like, you need to go to law school, you need to get a law degree or a doctor or whatever. And now you're like, follow your fulfillment or do what feels right to you. Like, how has that shifted for you?
I think that was probably the most surprising part of motherhood. People tell you that motherhood changes your brain chemistry, right? And you become like a different person. But when I had my baby, my first one, I was very much of the mindset that like, I was going to go back to work and everything was going to be pretty much the same. It was going to be a little harder, but my goals were going to be the same. I was going to want to excel there and be like a top lawyer, and that I was going to care about all the same things, with just maybe they were second to my child, but still pretty front and center. And that just was not the case. And I was totally shocked by how much my priorities changed. And that in and of itself was such an identity shift for me, to be less traditionally career driven and to feel like, oh shit, I need to find a path that's like more accommodating to motherhood. That was not something I saw on my bingo card, that I was going to totally have a huge shift until I had my son. And then it became apparent pretty quickly that I was going to need to make some changes if I was going to have a life that I actually enjoyed living.
Did you resist that shift?
Yes.
Or did you embrace it right away?
Oh, hell no. No.
So how long did it take you to like embrace the shift and be like, there's no going back, there's moving forward. My priorities have shifted. My fulfillment has shifted.
Like now?
So that's like what, 3 years?
Yeah.
3 years in?
Like, so yeah. I would say since the moment I got pregnant almost 3 years ago to right now.
I completely resonate with this, like as you were speaking, because I really found after I had my first, there was a part of me that was like, I still want to be the same old Dale, but with a kid.
Yeah.
And I was fighting this identity so much, even the way I showed up on social media.
Right.
So I have a fitness account, but then I also we started our More Than Moms account. And I was like, okay, I'm going to still post the same stuff. I'm going to hide my motherhood. I would literally hid all my motherhood stuff. And then a part of me was like, this is such a big part of my life and I can't not share it. And I found with my second, I finally have been like, it's actually been more balancing for me because I've accepted I have no choice but to lean into this new identity as like, I'm a mom of 2. And even if you're a mom of 1, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, but it's more the surrendering to like, why am I trying to go back to my old self? Like, why am I trying to prove to the world? Like, don't worry, guys. I'm still the chill Dale who goes out and like doesn't need to be home for bedtime. Like, nothing's changed. It's like we fight this part of ourselves, and it's like we almost carry shame to be like, I don't want to be that mom type thing. I don't know if you've felt that, but
do you feel the stigma?
Yeah, a lot of apologizing all the time was what I was doing for how I have changed due to motherhood. And whether that was with friends who didn't necessarily get it and were like, why aren't we going out and drinking until whatever, 2:00 in the morning? And it's like, well, because I don't feel great showing up as a mom when I've had 4 margaritas or whatever. Like, that's not going to hit right the next day. So that's not happening anymore. So that's like in a personal, or just like making plans, right? Like, I don't make plans that would take away from my family the way I used to. My husband and I used to be able to, split, come back to each other at night, whatever, like, but have our separate social lives. Is my time with my kids and my husband is precious. So I don't necessarily want to do that as much. Girl time is important, don't get me wrong. So that's still part of my life, but like the extraneous friends that are not as much of a value add anymore, or don't fill my cup and I don't fill theirs, that's just not a thing anymore. And with work, same thing. I was apologizing for not being able to be on call 24/7. For example, right before I went out on leave with my second baby, I had gotten a call that was like, hey, I need you to work around the clock for the next 4 days. And that was on a Thursday. And I felt bad saying no. I was almost 9 months pregnant. Wow. And I was slow at work, so I had the work capacity, but I did not have the physical capacity, nor did I have childcare set up for the weekend. And I was constantly apologizing for being the team member that couldn't be there right when the partner needed me. And I felt guilty about it, but I just physically couldn't be in more places than my kids needed me because they were so young that I can't just plop them in front of the TV all day and be like, okay, take care of yourselves. Like, they're little. It wasn't a thing.
It's like this pressure, as we all know, to do it all.
Yes.
And we're always trying to balance, but we really find there's no true balance because something's got to give. So how is your approach to like doing it all and changing your expectations? Like, how has that shifted?
Yeah. I just wrote a whole Substack about this because I was like so in tune with this question at the moment and the fact that I just don't know yet. I think that doing it all is bullshit. It's a myth that we've been sold. And I think our generation of women, in particular in our age group, has been particularly sold this concept by our parents, by society writ large, that we should be both these idyllic mothers who are like essentially Martha Stewart-like, as well as these powerhouse career holders, and nothing is going to change around us, right? Like I at least feel very much like my husband has taken on more roles than a lot of men used to way back when. He does a lot more and he's super hands-on, and I'm grateful for that. But there are things that we as moms want to be there for, or that men just don't always think of. Like, let's just be honest.
For sure.
My husband jokes that the gremlins show up and that's how the toilet paper gets in the house. Like, he doesn't always think to press order on Amazon or whatever. Like, we do that as moms. We're the default parents. So the world around us just didn't change to accommodate this new expectation that we do it all. And same thing with at work. Like, there are better maternity leave policies than there used to be, but it's not enough to actually accommodate being a working mom who is also like climbing up the corporate ladder. It's hard. And so to answer your question, I'm figuring it out. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it means a pivot in my career because the first one wasn't working for me. I was sacrificing way too much at home.
Right. And, you spoke briefly about help, and we always talk about it. And to your point, which you mentioned was like, there's this pressure to do it all. And then there's also this shame in asking for help. And there's this shame that if you have help, you have the easy way out.
Yeah.
And Annabelle and I have spoken multiple times that we had our nurses and we have our nannies. But it doesn't mean that we necessarily have an out. But it is this shame, like, people are trying to be a little bit hush-hush about it.
Yeah.
And we want to normalize it because we think, we're taught as mothers or told, ask for help, always like ask for help. And then we do ask for help and it's like, oh, she has multiple nannies. She has a night nurse, so she shouldn't complain. So did you ever find, like especially showing up on social media, that you were a little bit, like you held back from sharing, or were you still like very open and honest about
no, I was totally transparent about it because that's how you get into shit if you like are not honest about these kinds of things. And it is important to normalize it and talk about it. We don't have the village that women used to have generations back, where your mom would live with you and help with the baby. Or some people have that, but I certainly don't. My mother is incredible. So is my mother-in-law. They're amazing and they're close with my kids. But they're not. They work like crazy. My mom still runs her dental practice multiple days a week. Like, they're not at my house taking care of my kids, and they're sure as hell not staying up overnight to give them a bottle. If I really needed it, I'm sure they would, but they'd truthfully rather outsource that as well. So there are women who have to pay for their village, and that's okay. Like, there can't be shame in that. Everyone had help. Everyone has help. If you don't have help, my hat's off to you. I think that is incredibly hard, and I feel for you. I can't imagine what single mothers go through who don't have a partner, who don't have anyone supporting them.
Sure.
My heart is so with those women. It's unbelievable. I can't imagine how difficult that is. But for a lot of women, there was always an expectation that you would have help. It's just not that you were going to pay for it. And tough shit. It is what it is. I have to pay for my help. So I do.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. I think I don't have family here, and you have to make your own village. And there's the chosen family and there's your real family. But at the end of the day, like it's not even about getting a nanny or getting help to handle our careers. It's also about having time for ourselves so that we can show up as the best mom.
Right. God forbid you have time
100%.
for yourself. The guilt I feel, I've actually decided that in 2025, I am scheduling said time for myself so I don't feel like shit about it. I absolutely love our nanny. I'm so grateful for her. She has definitely become like family. I love her. We also had a wonderful baby nurse who I love. But I was showing parts of my maternity leave where I wasn't with my kids all the time. I got a lot of heat for it on social media. This isn't a maternity leave. Why take leave? And first of all, I don't show every second of my life, right, on social media. So there was tons of time where I was in the weeds with my babies, and that was my life. And I just wasn't filming every single second of that. But also, like, what did you want me to do? Fire my nanny when I knew I was going to go back to work for 9 months? Like, what was the point here? So no, and I got so much heat for it. People made me feel so bad and like I was some shit mom over it. And I was like,
see, you shouldn't even have to justify it. The fact that you were
totally.
like, you don't see when I'm with my kids. Like, why do we have to justify our own actions? If we want to go out and do our thing and feel good in ourselves, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you were constantly like apologizing for things, and you were constantly like, you were getting heat, apologizing, making excuses. When did it shift where you were just like, I'm unapologetically myself, and this is who you're going to get, and I have the help, and this is my career, and this is what I do, and I'm a content creator? Like, how do you just go from apologizing, people pleasing, all that, to being confident in like who you are? Because I think that's like the big thing. Like you get more confident in becoming a mom the second time around, but your identity still feels kind of like shot.
Truthfully, I think it's day by day for me. I think that I've always been a bit of a balls to the wall kind of person. And my friends joke, like, you will 100% always know where you stand with me. I'm super blunt. And for better or for worse, some people like that, some people don't. And oftentimes that confidence is just there because I don't have a choice. I'm like, this is where we're at and I can't lie about it. So this is what you're going to see. This is what you're getting. Obviously, for example, if I tried to pretend like I was still at my Big Law job, that would be impossible. Like, what? I was just going to show that I was working from home and like doing a fake. No. So I just said, I left and I was super nervous about it. I was really scared about what that reaction was going to look like. And thankfully, people were really excited for me for the most part, which was such a relief. I was terrified of what that response was going to look like. But I think it is day by day. Some days I'm like, well, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And I'm really excited about it. So if you want to keep watching, great. If not, that's it. Tough cookies.
Were there certain relationships or friendships that you had to let go of during these transitions that didn't feel they were supportive to you and maybe they were draining you instead of expanding you?
Not with this recent career shift so much. My friends have been incredibly supportive of that. I think there were some friendships that I had to kind of step back from when I had kids that kind of expected me to show up in ways that no longer fit with my life. And that was really hard because they put so much value on my friendships. I have an older half brother, but we're super close, but we were not raised in the same household and we're 12 years apart. So my friends have always really been my life, my siblings, and something I really devote to. And that's meant that I've built enough friendship credit in a lot of ways that like they've still showed up for me when I had kids. They just spend more time with me during the day and with my kids. And also through this career shift, just being like, hey, how can we help? How can we support? So I've been very lucky in that sense. But there are definitely other friendships where I felt like maybe they were more grounded in things like partying that were not going to work for me anymore.
It's the interesting thing about motherhood is that you find out which friendships have been convenient for you because you did the same things or because you lived close proximity to someone versus friends for life that will move with you through the stages.
Right.
Whether or not they're there. I find Annabelle and I both have friends that are in different life stages than us who we're still super close with because they've really adapted to, our changes. Yeah. And then other friends that were more life stage friends that were great at one time, but maybe don't no longer work and that are maybe they're not accommodating or, whatever. So I think it is interesting that motherhood kind of weeds out
for
those
sure
kind of friends.
And I mean, I think it does have to go both ways to some degree, right? Like you can't necessarily just say to all of your friends, at least the ones who don't have kids yet, hey, I need you to just every time you see me, you're going to come to me and we're going to hang with my kids. And I'm never going to give to, a type of friendship that we had before, whether that just means going out to an early dinner or something. Like, I do think it's important to remember that they're not in that same phase and to give back in that sense as well and meet them where they are. You can't expect everyone to meet you where you are all the time, but you can expect it a little bit more sometimes. Definitely. That's what I found.
And how about with your husband going through this identity shift of starting One Lit Mama, leaving corporate law? Like, did that change anything? Not that like would change your relationship, but more so like he's used to you going to work and this not more like, you know,
alpha,
corporate. Yeah. So do you feel like also you were maybe more in your feminine, more creative? Do you feel like your relationship kind of shifted a little bit, or maybe, I don't know. What changed there?
This is going to be surprising, I think, for some people. But my husband, I think he's so incredibly supportive, and he was excited. He runs his own business, and he's always been excited by the idea of me running my own. He doesn't really believe in working for someone else for a long time. It was a really great income and gig while I had it. But long term, he was like, there's a ceiling cap there that's not there with the thing that you're actually passionate about where you're working for yourself. That said, I think he's a little thrown off in the last like month and a half since I left my job, in that I have been so trying to figure out what's next for me and how to build this out, that I've actually in some ways been working more and with less of a schedule and less of a willingness to turn off, because it is my own thing.
Right.
And he's definitely felt the strain of that. I think it's put some pressure on us because I'm a control freak and I don't know what I'm doing. There's a loss of control here. And so I'm grappling with how to get that back and what that's going to look like for me. And it has taken away a bit from our marriage, which is always going to be one of, if not the most important thing in my life. I think having a happy, healthy marriage, if you choose to be in one, or partnership, is going to be so important for your children to see. So it's always going to be a forefront. And he's my favorite person in the world. But it's put some pressure on us in a way that was totally unexpected. I think he thought I was going to be like, for the time being, in stay-at-home mom mode. And that is just not me. Wasn't happening.
It's so funny because I feel like it's kind of like how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to... Okay, so now that you don't have this identity, you switched, you're still in the mode of like, okay, well, what's next? And you're going full force. But it's interesting because I feel like, you know, our husbands are always there. So sometimes that's something that gets put on the back burner, like, oh, this can wait. Like, he's always there. Like, we don't need to schedule date night, or we don't need to communicate about this and that, because right now I'm in, you know, work mode. And usually, even though it's the most important relationship we have, it's the one that gets pushed on the back burner because we feel like they'll always be there. Yeah. And, you know, which is true, but like at the same time,
it takes work.
The day-to-day moments get taken away from us.
Well, yeah. Then can I ask, since you have been doing this longer than I have, how do you make that a priority then?
I love the reverse question.
Yeah, I love the reverse question.
I need to learn also. I want to learn from other people too, because I don't have all the answers. I don't know. I'm trying so hard to figure it all out. And I never want my husband to feel like he's not a priority, because he just is. But I now am in this job where like there weren't really hours with my last one, but it was easier to kind of be like, and I'm done with this right now.
It's like there were more boundaries with the structure. I totally relate to this. So my husband is also an entrepreneur. Like we've both been entrepreneurs for he left school when he was 19 and started his first business. So his life has always been like very entrepreneurial and like flowy and just like so not structured. So like working at all hours, like having more time off, like just more flexible.
Right.
And then he really helped me start my own entrepreneurial journey when I was like 27.
Wow.
And so it's always been very core to who we are as people. And I think we've really grown together in it.
Yeah.
But I would say like it's just whatever works for your relationship. So what works for us like might not work for other people. But I think for us, I'm a big boundaries person. So I am very like annoyingly mindful about phones being put away at dinner, or like no phones in a nursery, or spending quality time. I don't need to go on extravagant date nights or trips or anything. I could be at home cooking dinner and the phones are away, and that's like kind of our time to connect. But I think it's really important to add structure from like the home life standpoint of just putting everything away, even if it's for an hour, even if you have more work to do at the end of the day, there is no reason why we cannot put our phones away for an hour, go for a walk in the middle of the day. We're both entrepreneurs. We don't have set schedules. So maybe dinners don't work because we have calls or other activities, but how about breakfast or a walk? There's so many other things that we can do.
Right.
And another thing is what we did is once we had kids, I actually took him to my therapist. And not because anything was wrong, but I just wanted to, communication is everything. So now that you have another kid in the picture, another responsibility, how are we reprioritizing our relationship? How are we going about communication in a different manner? There are more things to get frustrated about or to do and to be responsible for. How do we kind of like do this in the most efficient way?
Right.
And it was really helpful to actually have him with my therapist because I started to understand a lot more about how he processes things, like what he feels like he's doing and I feel like he's not doing. It's we're very different people. Like we're also just like male and females are just very different. And so it's interesting when you can take a step back and understand how they think, how they process, how they work, and for them to understand how you do and what's important to you. Because he thinks like maybe he's showing up for me by coming home with, lunch for me, which is sweet. But maybe what I need is him to just turn off his phone for 30 minutes instead. Right. So there's so many different things. And I think if you're not communicating, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. I also think knowing each other's love languages is really important.
I'm a big love language person.
I think it's underrated because it's super important to understand. And I find this with friendships too. For example, I'm not a gift person. I do like nice things. I'm honest about that. But I don't really care if you get me a gift. That's just like not my love language. But if you go out of your way to send me particularly if gift giving is your love language and I've had a really tough day. I have one friend who will she knows I'm having a shit day. She's big into wine. She's from Sonoma. She'll send me a really nice bottle of wine will show up at my door. And that's the type of gift that speaks to me. It's the thoughtfulness. It's the act of service. It's I'm thinking about you in this way that means something to you and giving it in my way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not about how much it's spent.
Yeah,
which I think is and it's very similar to Annabelle. She loves thoughtfulness.
Yeah,
and because you're so thoughtful to other people, but it's so interesting because I think understanding this is how that person, you connect with that person is so important. And on the husband topic, it's interesting because my husband's a very corporate world, and I'm the one who's been in this entrepreneurial journey for some time.
Right.
And he, when it's a holiday, say it's Jan 1 or it's MLK Day or whatever, he's like, Dale, everyone has this day off, put your phone away. And I'm like, I'm a content creator. I can't. And I think to him, I know it comes from a place of love, but sometimes I think where there's a miscommunication is he's like, I can take it as you're not supporting my journey, and he's taking it as this should be a family day. So I think that's where it can get difficult. And to Annabelle's point, we've gone to therapy, especially right before we had our second kid, because I do find also with having the second kid, we went from two parents on one kid as a unit to divide and conquer. He's with my toddler, I'm with the baby. So there's just been an even more it's been harder to beat the odds of let's connect, find time this week to connect because bedtime is split up. Everything is split up. He goes off with one, I take the other. So
man-to-man defense is a totally different game.
And I think honestly, it should be something that I'm thinking about a lot this year, which has been my intention for this year is no more milestones, because it's been we moved to LA, we bought a house, we got married, we had a kid, we had another kid. And I'm this is the year where we lean into growing what we have, getting better at it.
Just not more kids.
No more kids. And I think
for now, hit pause.
And it should be more intentional that we find time to expand on that with each other.
I want to touch on one thing before we end that you mentioned is this feeling of loss of control. Because Dale and I actually just recorded an episode on it. It went live 2 days ago, and so many people wrote in that they really resonate with it. And so for someone who's clearly a very type A personality, likes structure to her day.
What you can tell already.
Exactly. Like structure to her day, like the hustle and bustle of New York and big law and all that. How have you been navigating this loss of control, loss of structure, creating your own day, not having boundaries? I know you're still figuring it out. We all are. But is there anything that you have been doing that is helping? How do you mentally navigate that?
It's messy. It's definitely messy. One thing that I'm so glad you both touched on that I would love to improve on is figuring out how I can put my phone away more. I think doing anything even tangentially related to content creation just inevitably means that you're on your phone because either you're filming or you're editing or whatever. It's too much. And I would like to set a schedule with that more. I loved what you said about, putting it away for 30 minutes to have dinner while you're cooking, whatever. I need to be better about that. And I think that will really help with my mental health and figuring out that sense of control is that I don't feel like I constantly need to be with my phone. That would be really great. I think another thing that's been really helpful for me in figuring it out is trying to set goals, not milestones necessarily. We also moved 2 kids. Like I hit pause on that, but I am trying to grow this new, I don't know what you call it, career maybe. And what are the things that I want to do to see tangible results on where that goes? And sometimes that just means sitting down to figure out defining what that looks like for me. Like, what do I want out of this? What's my why? And actually trying to then see what the steps are to get there. So is that I post on Substack once every 2 weeks and I have a piece that like really resonates with someone. I think another thing that's helping with my sense of control is doing things that actually fuel me. It has been really hard because we haven't had our nanny for a month. We've had we've had people step in, but it's not the same as having your like consistent person 100%. That your kids like know your routine, that you trust 100%. So it has only amplified that sense of loss of control, in that my kid might be screaming in the other room that he doesn't want to listen to my nanny, or he just wants a hug. He wants to be with mommy, and that's okay. So that means I'm putting down my phone or my computer and stopping working to go deviate to be with him. And that's where we're at right now. So very much a figuring it out stage. I hope to get that a little more ironed out in the next like month or so, but it's hard. It's just hard.
You mentioned something really interesting that I love about just New Year's in general. I think people are so focused on setting these goals and all these things forward facing, but they forget what you said, to kind of take inventory and reflect of like, okay, does that feel fulfilling? Does that feel good? Is this where I want to go? And I think that's such an important step to just like understand where you're at right now. What do you truly want to do before you kind of dive into, I want to grow this by X amount and get this amount of money by this day. It's like, but you have to understand like what you're doing and what your purpose is in order to actually achieve those things. Because I truly believe that success, like monetary success, comes with fulfillment, comes with you being on the right path. So if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, okay. Like, I don't think you're going to get to the place you want.
Going through the motions is never going to be as successful as like really powering to do something that you love. So you're excited to be there and showing up. I think that it's a gift you can give yourself, to give yourself the time and space to sit down and think about what you actually want and why you want it, why you're doing it. That's really a gift. It's not something that should be taken for granted, and it's not something that everyone has, right? You don't always have the time or the bandwidth to slow down and the luxury to then pursue what it is you want once you've actually gotten to that point. And there's always going to be a million reasons why that is, why you can't do this, why you might not feel comfortable or ready yet. I think what I'm learning right now is that sometimes you just gotta go for it. And that's that. And like, this is what you have right now. This is what you want. Try and figure it out.
And people often neglect the fact that sometimes reflection gives them insight in how they can move forward. Like what lights me up, what worked and what didn't work. And people are so focused on the future that sometimes the past can really help them guide that. So we would be remiss to not ask about your mother-in-law, who's fabulous and is an amazing role model, Barbara Corcoran. So tell us what she's like as a mother-in-law. She seems like an amazing role model.
We love her on Shark Tank.
We love her on Shark Tank.
Yeah, she is amazing. Like such a powerhouse, which I think everyone knows. And I think one of the things that I get to bring to light, which is really fun for me, her, as well as like my audience, is that they get to see her as a grandmother, because she's just as much of a powerhouse in that way. but she's also a total sucker for my kids. She has no discipline, especially when it comes to my son. He has her so wrapped around his little finger. It's hysterical. But she is amazing. In so many ways, she's shown up for me, my children. So has my mom. It's incredible the way that both of them have such busy schedules. And I think everyone knows my mother-in-law has this crazy schedule. She's traveling all the time. She still comes over and babysits my kids at night so that I can go out with my husband for a date night or to a birthday party or something. Like, people are like, that's such a flex that she's babysitting for your kids. I'm like, it's not. What's a flex is that I have this relationship with my mother-in-law that's close enough that I can ask her to give up her Saturday night to come sit at home when her grandchildren are asleep. They're not even awake.
Right.
And like, that's the real flex, is having that close-knit of a family despite demanding schedules. And I'm just so grateful for it. She's so much fun. She's so much fun for them. I don't know how she has that energy. She plays with them. And like I said, it's both my mom and my mother-in-law. And I don't know where they get this energy from, because I am tapped out after an hour. They will go for hours and play on the floor, lifting, blocks, games, chasing. They pretended there was like a cave for maybe 5 hours. And they built forts. I just don't even know how it happens, but I'm just so grateful for it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. You were an incredible guest. So where can everyone find you?
On TikTok and on Instagram, you can find me at onelipmama with an underscore at the end. The one is spelled out. And then on Substack, Lia Michelle Higgins. It's called Mom Talk. I hope everyone will subscribe and let me know what you want to hear from me.
Great. Well,
This
thank
was
you
so
so
nice.
much.
Thank you for coming all the way to LA. We're so happy.
Yes, thank you for having me.